Get out! Valerie is coming over. He locked me in the snow in my nightgown. I was freezing until the elderly neighbor opened her door. My son is his boss. Tomorrow, he's finished. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. The cold hit me before the realization did. It felt like a physical slap, a wall of ice that instantly stole the breath from my lungs. But even that freezing wind off Lake Michigan wasn't as cold as the look in my husband's eyes. Get out, Meredith. Just get out, Russell snarled, his hand gripping the door handle so tight his knuckles were white. Russell, please, I stammered, my teeth already starting to chatter. I was standing on our front porch in nothing but a thin silk nightgown and bare feet. The snow was falling in thick, heavy sheets, the kind of Chicago blizzard that shuts down the city. It's 5 degrees out here. Let me grab a coat. Please. I told you, I need space. I have a VIP client coming in 10 minutes, and I don't need you hovering around like a desperate housewife. He spat the words out like they tasted bad. Go to your mother's. Go anywhere. Just not here. He didn't wait for me to answer. He slammed the heavy oak door, the door I had refinished myself last summer, right in my face. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home echoed like a gunshot in the silent, snowy street. I stood there, stunned. My brain couldn't process it. My mother lived 3 towns over. My car keys were inside. My phone was on the kitchen counter. I was barefoot on concrete that was rapidly disappearing under a layer of ice. Russell. I pounded on the wood with my fist. Russell, open this door. You can't do this. Nothing. Just the howling wind and the bite of the snow on my exposed skin. I hugged myself, trying to preserve whatever body heat I had left, but I could feel the numbness starting in my toes, creeping up my ankles. It was a terrifying sensation, the feeling of your body shutting down. Then, headlights swept across the lawn. A car was pulling into our driveway. A sleek, red Mercedes. I knew that car. I knew the license plate. It was Valerie. My best friend of 15 years. Relief washed over me for a split second. Valerie would help me. She would talk sense into Russell. She had a key. I stumbled down the porch steps, my feet screaming in protest as they touched the frozen snow. Valerie! I choked out, waving my arms. Valerie, thank God. He locked me out. The driver's side door opened. Valerie stepped out. She was wearing a thick fur coat, knee-high leather boots, and holding a bottle of expensive champagne. She looked immaculate, untouched by the storm. She looked at me. She didn't look concerned. She didn't rush to wrap her coat around me. She looked annoyed. Like I was a piece of trash that had blown onto her driveway. Meredith, she said, her voice flat. You're still here? Russell said he took care of it. He locked me out, I managed to say, my jaw trembling so hard I could barely form words. Valerie, please. Let me in your car. I'm freezing. She laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. Oh, honey. You really don't get it, do you? I'm not here for you. I'm the VIP client. My heart stopped. The cold was forgotten for a second, replaced by a heat that seared through my chest. What? The front door of my house opened. Russell stood there, smiling, a warm, inviting smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Val, baby, come inside. It's freezing out there, he called out. Russell? I whispered. He looked at me with pure disgust. I thought I told you to leave. Valerie is going to take better care of me tonight than you have in 10 years. Look at you. You're pathetic. Valerie sashayed past me, the scent of her expensive perfume mixing with the smell of ice and exhaust. She paused right next to me, leaning in close. Go find a shelter, Meredith. This is my house now. She walked up the steps. Russell wrapped his arm around her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her, deeply, passionately, right in front of me. Then, he looked at me one last time. Hope you freeze, he said. And for the second time that night, the door slammed shut. I stood there in the snow, watching the warm glow of the lights in my living room, watching the shadows of my husband and my best friend merge together. My body finally gave up. My knees buckled, and I sank into the snow. The cold wasn't painful anymore. It was just heavy. I closed my eyes, thinking how strange it was that my life was ending on my own front lawn, betrayed by the two people I loved most in the world. The darkness was closing in. I could feel my consciousness slipping, like water draining from a tub. The snow felt less like ice and more like a heavy, wet blanket pulling me down into sleep. I knew, logically, that this was hypothermia. I knew I was dying. But the heartbreak was so massive, so all-consuming, that dying felt like a mercy. Let it end, a voice inside me whispered. You have nothing left. No husband. No best friend. No home. Then, a beam of light cut through the swirling white. I heard a sound. A mechanical click. A squeak of hinges. Not from my house, but from the one next door. Child! Good Lord, child, move! The voice was sharp, commanding. I forced my heavy eyelids open. Through the blur of snow, I saw a figure on the porch of the Victorian house next door. It was Mrs. Higgins. She was the neighborhood recluse. An elderly woman, maybe 75, who spent her days tending to her prize-winning roses and scowling at anyone who stepped on her lawn. We had exchanged maybe 20 words in the 5 years Russell and I had lived here. I tried to stand, but my legs were useless. I tried to crawl, but my arms wouldn't obey. Suddenly, she was there. For a woman her age, she moved with surprising strength. I felt rough wool against my cheek as she threw a heavy blanket over my head. Don't you dare die on my property, Meredith, she grunted, hooking her arms under my armpits. Up. Get up. I don't know how we made it the 30 feet to her front door. It was a blur of wind, snow, and the iron grip of this old woman dragging me towards safety. She shoved me through her doorway and slammed it shut against the blizzard. The silence was instant. The wind was gone, replaced by the ticking of a grandfather clock and the crackle of a fire. The heat hit me like a physical blow. It burned. My skin felt like it was on fire. I collapsed onto her hallway rug, shivering so violently my teeth clattered together like dice in a cup. Stay down, Mrs. Higgins ordered. She disappeared and returned seconds later with more blankets, thick, hand-quilted ones. She wrapped me up like a mummy, leaving only my face exposed. Then came the towels, warm from a dryer, pressed against my hair. Then thick wool socks pulled gently onto my frozen feet. She worked silently, efficiently, like a field medic. Drink, she commanded, pressing a mug to my lips. It smelled of ginger, honey, and something sharp, whiskey. I took a sip, coughing as the liquid burned its way down my throat. But the warmth spread through my chest, kick-starting my heart. Thank you, I stuttered, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. Mrs. Higgins didn't smile. She sat back on her heels, watching me with eyes the color of steel. Don't thank me yet. We need to get your temperature up before you go into shock. She helped me move to the armchair by the fireplace. As the feeling began to return to my extremities, the physical pain was agonizing. My fingers throbbed. My toes felt like they were being crushed. But the emotional pain was worse. From where I sat, I could see through Mrs. Higgins' living room window. I could see my house. The curtains were open. I saw shadows moving. I saw Valerie throwing her head back, laughing. I saw Russell pouring more champagne. They were celebrating. They were celebrating my erasure. A sob ripped out of my throat, raw and ugly. How could they? She was my sister, in every way that mattered. And he was my life. Mrs. Higgins followed my gaze. Her expression didn't soften, but her eyes darkened with a terrifying intensity. Men like Russell are weak, she said, her voice low and steady. And women like that friend of yours are parasites. They feed on kindness because they have none of their own. I looked at her, tears streaming down my face. I have nothing. He has the accounts. He has the house. I don't even have shoes. You have your life, Mrs. Higgins said firmly. And you have something they don't. What? I sniffled. What could I possibly have? You have the truth, she said. She reached over and poured more tea into my cup. I've been watching them, Meredith. 4 months. My head snapped up. What? Every Tuesday, she said, taking a sip of her own tea. When you go to your volunteer shift at the library. That red car pulls up. She goes in. They don't come out for hours. I've seen them in the garden when they thought no one was looking. I've heard the way he talks to you when you're gardening, talking down to you like you're a servant. I felt sick. You knew? I suspected, she corrected. I didn't know the extent of the cruelty until tonight. Until I saw him throw you out like garbage. She stood up and walked to the window, staring at my house with a look of pure calculation. You think you're weak right now, Meredith. You think you're broken. But you're not. You're just frozen. And tomorrow? She turned back to me, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. Tomorrow, the ice melts. And when ice melts, it causes floods. I didn't understand what she meant then. I just huddled in the blankets, watching the man I loved destroy everything we had built, unaware that the old woman standing guard over me was about to change the entire game. I woke up to the smell of lavender and old paper. For a moment, disoriented, I reached out for Russell, expecting the warmth of his back. My hand hit cold sheets. The memory of the night before crashed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I wasn't in my bed. I was in a guest room with floral wallpaper and heavy velvet curtains. Mrs. Higgins' house. I sat up, every muscle in my body aching. My feet were tender, red and slightly swollen, but not frostbitten. I was alive. I found a pile of clothes folded neatly on the chair next to the bed, a soft cashmere sweater, wool trousers, and thick socks. They were old-fashioned but looked expensive. A note rested on top, breakfast is ready. Come downstairs. I dressed slowly, catching a glimpse of myself in the vanity mirror. My eyes were puffy, my hair a tangled mess, my skin pale. I looked like a ghost. Maybe I was. The Meredith who had a husband and a best friend was dead. I walked down the creaky wooden stairs. The smell of bacon and coffee drew me to the kitchen. It was a pristine, vintage space, shining with copper pots and checkered tiles. Mrs. Higgins was at the stove, flipping pancakes. She was dressed in a sharp tweed suit, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon. She didn't look like a gardener today. She looked like a CEO. Sit, she said without turning around. I sat at the small round table. Mrs. Higgins, I don't know how to repay you. I need to call my mother, but I don't have a phone. Eat first, she placed a plate in front of me. You need strength for what comes next. I forced myself to eat. The food was delicious, but it turned to ash in my mouth. I have to figure out what to do, I said, my voice trembling. I have to find a lawyer. But Russell controls all our assets. He made me sign a prenup that I didn't even read properly because I trusted him. He said it was just standard procedure for his job. Mrs. Higgins sat down opposite me with a cup of black coffee. Russell works for Higgins Logistics, doesn't he? The downtown branch? I nodded, wiping a crumb from my lip. Yes. He's the regional finance director. He's very important there. He always tells me how indispensable he is. Indispensable, Mrs. Higgins repeated the word, rolling it around in her mouth like a piece of hard candy. He tells you he runs the place? Basically, I sighed. He says the owners are absentee billionaires who don't know what they're doing, so he handles everything. Mrs. Higgins let out a short, sharp laugh. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a sleek, modern smartphone, the kind that cost $1,000. It looked out of place in her hands. My name, she said calmly, is Eleanora Higgins. I stared at her. Yes, I know. Mrs. Higgins. My late husband was Robert Higgins. He founded Higgins Logistics 40 years ago with a single truck and a lot of grit. The room suddenly felt very small. I stopped chewing. Wait. You mean... I mean, she continued, her eyes locking onto mine, that Russell doesn't work for absentee billionaires. He works for my family. Specifically, he works for my son, Arthur. My jaw dropped. Arthur Higgins? The CEO? That's your son? He is. And he's a good boy. A bit too trusting sometimes, perhaps. He lets his regional directors have too much autonomy. She tapped her finger on the table. I moved here 3 years ago because I wanted peace and quiet. I didn't tell Arthur I was buying the house next to one of his directors. I just liked the garden. But it turned out to be a very fortunate coincidence. She picked up the phone and dialed a number. She put it on speaker. Mother? A deep, resonant male voice filled the kitchen. Is everything all right? It's 7 a.m. Arthur, Mrs. Higgins said, her voice shifting from grandmotherly to authoritative instantly. I need you to come to my house. Immediately. Is it your heart? Do I need to call an ambulance? The panic in his voice was real. My heart is fine. But your company is sick, she said, staring straight at me. I have a witness here. Russell, your regional finance director? He just threw his wife out into a blizzard to move his mistress in. And Arthur? Yes, Mother? Bring the audit team. And bring security. I have a feeling that a man who treats his wife like garbage treats company funds the same way. There was a pause on the other end. Then, a steeliness entered Arthur's voice that matched his mother's perfectly. I'm on my way. Give me 40 minutes. The call ended. Mrs. Higgins looked at me. You said you used to be an accountant before you married him, didn't you, Meredith? I nodded, dumbfounded. Yes. I was a forensic accountant. I audited big firms. Good, she smiled, and this time, it was a genuine smile. Because you're not just a victim today, dear. You're the lead investigator. Finish your coffee. We have work to do. As I sat there waiting for Arthur Higgins, watching the snow glisten innocently outside the window, my mind drifted back. I needed to understand how I had let it get this bad. How had the sharp, ambitious Meredith transformed into the shivering woman on the porch? It started 10 years ago. I was 28, sitting in a glass-walled office in downtown Chicago. I held a letter in my hand. It was an offer from a top financial firm in New York. A senior auditor position. A salary that made my eyes water. It was everything I had worked for since college, the late nights studying for my CPA, the grueling internship years. I rushed home to tell Russell. We had been dating for 2 years. He was charming then. So charming. He bought me flowers every Friday. He opened doors. He listened to me talk about balance sheets like it was poetry. I burst into his apartment, waving the letter. I got it. Russell, I got the job. He hugged me, spun me around. We popped champagne. But then, the conversation shifted. New York, he said, his face falling just a fraction. That's far. And expensive. We can make it work, I said, buzzing with adrenaline. You can look for jobs there. With your resume, you'll find something in a heartbeat. He sighed, sitting down on the couch and putting his head in his hands. I didn't want to tell you tonight, Mare. I didn't want to ruin your moment. What? I sat beside him, panic rising. What is it? I just got the promotion at Higgins Logistics. The regional director track. It's a huge opportunity, babe. But it's here. In Chicago. I felt the air leave the room. Oh. He took my hands, looking into my eyes with that intense, soulful gaze that used to make my knees weak. Look, we have a choice. We can chase your job in New York, where we'll be paying triple the rent, starting over, stressed out of our minds. Or, we stay here. I take this promotion. I can support us, Meredith. I can build us a life where you don't have to work 80-hour weeks auditing soulless corporations. But I love my work, I whispered. I know, he soothed, stroking my hair. But think about our future. Think about a family. Do you want to raise kids in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn? Or do you want a house with a yard? I want to take care of you. Let me be the provider. You've worked so hard. Isn't it time you let someone else carry the load? He made it sound so romantic. So noble. A partnership where he sacrificed his comfort to carry the burden, and I reaped the reward of a peaceful life. I looked at the offer letter. Then I looked at Russell. I chose him. I shredded the letter the next morning. The changes were subtle at first. Once we were married, and I was working a smaller, part-time job just to keep busy, the comments started. Why are you so tired? He'd ask when I didn't have dinner ready. It's not like you have a real job. When I tried to talk about our finances, he'd shut me down. Don't worry your pretty little head about the numbers, Mare. I'm the finance director, remember? I handle the big stuff. You just handle the grocery budget. He started giving me an allowance. An allowance. Like a child. I had to ask him for money to buy a winter coat. I had to justify why I needed new boots. You don't need expensive clothes, he'd say, checking his Rolex, a watch that cost more than my car. You're just at home or at the library. Who are you trying to impress? I shrank. Year by year, layer by layer, I shrank. I stopped fighting because fighting made him cold, made him withdraw his affection, and I was so desperate for the love he promised me that I would do anything to get it back. I convinced myself I was happy. I convinced myself that this was what marriage was, compromise. But it wasn't compromise. It was erasure. Sitting in Mrs. Higgins' kitchen, remembering the woman I used to be, I felt a flash of anger so hot it nearly made me dizzy. I had given up my power. I had handed him the keys to my life, and he had used them to lock me out in the snow. I looked at my hands, hands that used to uncover million-dollar frauds. They were trembling, not from cold, but from rage. Never again, I whispered to the empty kitchen. I am never shrinking again. If Russell was the hammer that broke me, Valerie was the rust that weakened the metal over time. I met Valerie at a yoga class 5 years ago. She was everything I felt I wasn't: glamorous, loud, unapologetic. She was divorced, living on a hefty settlement from her ex-husband, and she took me under her wing as her project. You need to spice things up, Meredith, she would say, dragging me to the mall. Russell is a high-value man. If you don't keep him interested, someone else will. She planted the seeds of insecurity so deep I didn't even know they were weeds. She would come over for dinner, wearing dresses that were just a little too tight, a little too low-cut. She'd sit next to Russell, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm. "Oh, Russell, you're so funny," she'd coo. Then she'd look at me with pity. "Meredith never gets your humor, does she? She's so serious." When I brought it up to her later, she'd gaslight me instantly. "Oh my God, Mare. Are you jealous? Of me? I'm your best friend. I'm just being friendly. You're so insecure, it's actually kind of sad." Maybe that's why Russell is so stressed. So I apologized. I apologized for suspecting my best friend. Then came the crisis 6 months ago. Valerie called me, sobbing. Her landlord was selling her condo. She needed a place to stay for a few weeks while she closed on a new place. "Of course," I said. "We have the guest room." Russell was hesitant at first, or at least, he pretended to be. "I don't know, Mare. Having someone else in the house. It's just for a few weeks," I pleaded. "She's family." God, I was stupid. Those weeks turned into months. The dynamic in the house shifted terrifyingly fast. I became the third wheel in my own marriage. They would watch movies together while I cleaned up dinner. They would share inside jokes. One night, about a month ago, I came downstairs for water. They were in the kitchen. They weren't touching, but the air between them was electric. They were standing too close. "Meredith!" Valerie jumped when she saw me. "You scared us. Why are you guys up?" I asked, gripping my glass. "Valerie was just having a panic attack about the new condo," Russell said smoothly, stepping between me and her. "I was just calming her down." "He's such a good listener," Valerie said, her eyes wet. "You're so lucky, Meredith. Most men wouldn't care." I felt a knot in my stomach, that gut instinct screaming at me. But Valerie struck first. "You know," she said to me the next day, "I think Russell feels lonely. He told me he feels like you don't appreciate how hard he works. You should try to be more grateful. Maybe cook his favorite meal tonight?" So I did. I cooked a prime rib roast. I set the table with candles. And Russell didn't come home until midnight. "Where were you?" I asked, fighting back tears. "Working late," he snapped. "Stop nagging me." 10 minutes later, Valerie walked in the front door. "Oh, hi. I just went for a late-night drive. Did I miss dinner?" They had been together. I knew it now. The work and the drive. They were probably laughing at me while I basted that roast. The memory that hurt the most, though, happened just last week. I was looking in the mirror, complaining about a few wrinkles. Valerie stood behind me. "Well, we can't all stay young forever, Mare. Some of us age like milk, some like wine. Russell needs a fine wine to match his status." It was a slap in the face disguised as a joke. "That's mean," I said. "I'm just being honest," she laughed. Friends tell each other the truth. The truth. The truth was that she had been coveting my life, my husband, and my home since the day we met. She didn't want to be my friend. She wanted to be me. And last night, she finally got her wish. She got the husband. She got the house. But she made one mistake. She underestimated the woman she stole it from. She thought I was weak because I was kind. She was about to learn that kindness has a breaking point, and mine had just snapped. A black town car pulled into Mrs. Higgins' driveway at exactly 8 a.m. The man who stepped out was tall, silver-haired, and exuded an air of quiet power that Russell tried to imitate but never quite mastered. Arthur Higgins. He walked into the kitchen, bringing a gust of cold air with him. He kissed his mother on the cheek and then turned to me. His eyes were kind, but sharp. "Mrs. Meredith?" he asked, extending a hand. "I'm Arthur. I am so incredibly sorry for what happened to you last night. It is unforgivable." I shook his hand, feeling self-conscious in his mother's old clothes. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Higgins. Please, call me Arthur. My mother told me everything on the phone. But I need to hear it from you. And I need to know why she thinks company funds are involved." We sat at the table. Mrs. Higgins poured fresh coffee. I took a deep breath and let the accountant inside me take over. The crying wife was gone, the auditor was present. "Russell has been flashy lately," I began. "New watches. Rolex, Omega. Tailored suits that cost $3,000 each. We share a bank account, Arthur. I see his salary deposits. He makes good money, but not that kind of money. Not enough to support his lifestyle and hers." "Valerie," Mrs. Higgins interjected with a scowl. "Yes. Valerie drives a new Mercedes. She hasn't worked in 6 months. She wears Cartier jewelry. Last week, Russell came home with a bonus check receipt for $50,000. He said it was a performance bonus. But the stub looked off." Arthur frowned, pulling a tablet from his briefcase. "I didn't authorize any bonuses for the Chicago branch this quarter. In fact, numbers have been down. Russell told me it was due to increased vendor costs." "Vendor costs," I repeated, my mind racing. "Arthur, does the company use a vendor called VL Management?" Arthur tapped on his screen. "I see payments to VL Management monthly for consulting services. About $10,000 a month for the last year." "VL," I said, a bitter smile touching my lips. "Valerie Lane. That's her name." Arthur stopped typing. He looked up, his face hardening into stone. "He's funneling company money to his mistress under a fake vendor account?" "It's classic embezzlement," I said, the patterns becoming clear in my mind. "But he's smart. He wouldn't just use a fake vendor. He's probably padding the expense accounts too." "Does he handle the client entertainment budget?" "He has full autonomy over it," Arthur admitted, looking furious with himself. "He claims he takes clients to high-end dinners, golf trips." "Russell hates golf," I said. "And he's been home for dinner almost every night, until recently." "Those client dinners?" "That's him and Valerie dining at Michelin-star restaurants." Arthur slammed his hand on the table, making the china rattle. "I trusted him. He's been with me for 10 years. "So have I," I said quietly. "We both made the mistake of trusting him." Arthur looked at me, his expression softening. "We need proof. Hard proof. The bank transfers to Valerie, the fake invoices. Do you have access to his computer?" "He has a laptop," I said. "He keeps it in his home office. He never lets me touch it." But what?" "But I know his password," I said. "He thinks I'm stupid. He thinks I don't pay attention. He uses the same password for everything. It used to be our anniversary. Now? It's Success 123. Arthur nodded. "We can get a warrant, but that takes time. If he knows I'm coming, he'll wipe the drive." "He doesn't know you're coming," Mrs. Higgins said. "He thinks he's king of the world right now. He's probably sleeping in." "I need that laptop," Arthur said. "If I can get the drive to my forensic team, we can trace every penny." I looked out the window at my house. It stood there, silent and imposing in the snow. "I can get it," I said. "No," Arthur shook his head. "It's too dangerous. He's volatile. He won't be there at noon, I said. It's Tuesday. Even if he's not going to work, Valerie has a standing appointment at the spa every Tuesday at noon. She won't miss it, not even for a blizzard. And Russell. Russell always goes to the gym on Tuesdays at 12:30. He's a creature of habit. His narcissism makes him predictable. Are you sure? Arthur asked. I know his schedule better than I know my own name, I said, standing up. I'll go in. I still have my key hidden under the planter, assuming they haven't found it. I'll get the laptop. And I'll get the jewelry receipts he hides in the bottom drawer. Meredith, you don't have to do this, Mrs. Higgins warned. Yes, I do, I said, feeling a surge of adrenaline. This is my house. Those are my years he stole. I'm going to take them back. Arthur looked at me with newfound respect. Okay. But I'm sending my head of security to wait in the car down the street. If anything goes wrong, you run. Nothing will go wrong, I said, though my hands were shaking. Because they think I'm defeated. They think I'm frozen in a snowbank somewhere. They'll never see me coming. The waiting was the hardest part. We watched from Mrs. Higgins' window as the hours ticked by. At 11:45 a.m., the garage door opened. Valerie's red Mercedes backed out. She was wearing sunglasses, despite the overcast sky. One down, Mrs. Higgins whispered. 20 minutes later, Russell's SUV pulled out. He was in his gym gear. He didn't look like a man who had just destroyed his marriage, he looked like a man going for a casual workout. The arrogance of it made my blood boil. Go, Arthur said, holding up his phone. My security guy, Mike, is parked 2 houses down. He's watching. I pulled on a heavy coat Mrs. Higgins lent me and stepped out into the cold. The snow had stopped falling, but the drifts were knee-deep. I trudged across the yard, the invisible line between safety and danger. I reached the front porch. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I knelt by the large ceramic planter. Please be there. Please. My fingers brushed against cold metal. The spare key. He hadn't moved it. He was so confident I wouldn't return, or so lazy he just forgot. I slid the key into the lock. It clicked. I pushed the door open and stepped into my own house. The smell hit me first. It wasn't the smell of my lavender cleaning spray. It was the cloying, heavy scent of Valerie's perfume, mixed with stale champagne and something musky. It smelled like betrayal. I walked into the living room. It was a wreck. Wine glasses on the floor. My favorite throw pillows tossed in the corner. A fur coat draped over the lamp. It looked like a frat house, not the home I had meticulously kept for a decade. Focus, Meredith, I whispered to myself. Office. Laptop. Out. I ran up the stairs. The hallway felt haunted. I passed our bedroom door, my bedroom door. It was open. The sheets were tangled. I looked away, fighting the urge to vomit. I reached Russell's home office at the end of the hall. I opened the door. There it was. The sleek silver laptop sitting on his mahogany desk. I rushed over and flipped it open. The screen woke up. Password prompt. I typed, success 123. Incorrect password. My blood ran cold. He changed it. Of course he changed it. Think, Meredith, think, I hissed, my fingers hovering over the keys. What would he change it to? What does Russell love more than success? Himself. I tried his birthday, Russell 0512. Incorrect. I tried the car model, Porsche 911. Incorrect. Damn it! I slammed my hand on the desk. Then, my eyes landed on a framed photo on the desk. It used to be a photo of us from our honeymoon. It had been replaced. It was now a photo of Russell winning a golf tournament last month. He looked so proud, holding the trophy. The trophy date: October 15th, 23. I typed, Champion 1015. Access granted. The desktop appeared. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I jammed the USB drive Arthur gave me into the port. Copying. 5 minutes remaining. 5 minutes. It felt like 5 years. I started rummaging through the drawers while the progress bar crawled. Bottom drawer. The junk drawer. I pushed aside old chargers and found a velvet pouch. Inside was a diamond tennis bracelet. And a receipt. $12,000. Dated 3 days ago. He bought this for her while I was clipping coupons for groceries. I shoved the receipt and the bracelet into my pocket. Come on, I stared at the screen. 2 minutes remaining. Suddenly, I heard a sound downstairs. The garage door opening. My heart stopped. He was back. Why was he back? He never skipped the gym. I heard the heavy thud of the door connecting the garage to the kitchen. Forgot my protein shake, Russell's voice boomed. He wasn't alone. Just grab it and let's go, I don't want to be late for the massage, Valerie's voice. She had come back with him. They were in the kitchen. Right below me. I looked at the screen. 98% complete. Footsteps. They were coming toward the stairs. Did you hear something upstairs? Valerie asked. Probably the wind. Or a raccoon. This house is old, Russell replied. I don't know, Russ. It sounded like footsteps. The footsteps on the stairs got louder. Thump. 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 Copy complete. I yanked the USB drive out. I shut the laptop. I'm going to check, Russell said. He was on the landing now. 5 seconds from the office door. There was no way out. The window was locked and it was a 20-foot drop. I dove into the office closet, squeezing myself behind his hanging suits and a stack of file boxes. I pulled the door shut just as the office door handle turned. See? Nobody here, Russell said. I swear I heard something, Valerie whined. She walked into the room. I could hear her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She was inches away from where I was hiding. I held my breath, pressing my hand over my mouth. I was trapped. The darkness of the closet was suffocating. I was pressed against Russell's dry cleaning, the smell of his cologne, cedar and arrogance, filling my nose. A thin sliver of light cut through the slats of the closet door, allowing me to see slices of the room. You're paranoid, Val, Russell said. I saw his back as he walked to the desk. Laptop is right where I left it. I'm not paranoid, I'm cautious, Valerie snapped. She sat on the edge of the desk, swinging her legs. Did you call the lawyer? I froze. Yeah, I left a voicemail, Russell said. He sounded annoyed. We have to be careful with the prenup. It has an infidelity clause. If she proves I was cheating, she gets half. Half? Valerie shrieked. You said she would get nothing. She won't, Russell laughed darkly. Because she can't prove it. Who's going to believe her? She has no money for a lawyer. She has no evidence. And I have a backup plan. What plan? Russell leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. I've been building a file on her, Val. For the last year. Recording her mood swings. Note about her depression. I even have a doctor friend who signed a statement saying Meredith has been exhibiting signs of instability since her mother's illness. I nearly gasped aloud. My mother had a mild flu last year. He twisted that? Instability? Valerie purred. Like, crazy? Exactly, Russell grinned. If she tries to fight for the assets, I'll petition for power of attorney due to mental incapacity. I'll have her committed to a facility for a rest period. By the time she gets out, the divorce will be final, the assets will be transferred to my offshore account, and she'll be a medicated mess that no judge will listen to. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and angry. They weren't just planning to leave me, they were planning to erase my sanity. They wanted to lock me away in a padded room while they spent my money. It was evil. Pure, unadulterated evil. You're brilliant, baby, Valerie cooed. That's why I love you. So, about the inheritance. The grandma money? Russell said. That's the jackpot. The account has $500,000 in it. Technically, inheritance isn't marital property. But, Russell pulled a document from his desk drawer. I slipped a power of attorney form into the pile of tax documents she signed last month. She didn't even read it. She just signed where I pointed. I remembered that night. He had rushed me, saying the accountant needed the papers by morning. I had signed blindly. I trusted him. So you control the inheritance? Valerie asked, her voice trembling with greed. Not yet. I need to get it notarized. I have a guy who will backdate it for me. Once that stamp is on there, the money is ours. We can buy that vacation home in Cabo. God, I want to go to Cabo, Valerie sighed. Let's go. We're going to be late for the massage. 1 SEC, Russell said. He walked toward the closet. My heart hammered against my ribs like a sledgehammer. He's coming for his coat. He's going to open the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, clutching the USB drive so hard it cut into my palm. If he found me now, after hearing that, he might kill me. I wasn't being dramatic. A man who would institutionalize his sane wife for money was capable of anything. His hand touched the doorknob. The latch clicked. Babe! Come on! Valerie yelled from the hallway. I don't want to miss the facial. Russell paused. All right. I don't need the coat anyway. It's just a short run to the car. He let go of the knob. Coming, he called out. I listened to their footsteps retreat. Down the stairs. Through the kitchen. The door slamming. The garage opening, then closing. Silence. I burst out of the closet, gasping for air like I had been underwater. My legs were shaking so bad I could barely stand. I had the USB. I had the bracelet. But more importantly, I had the truth. He hadn't notarized the power of attorney yet. That was the key. He needed a guy to do it illegally. That meant the document was currently worthless. I pulled out my phone, the burner Arthur gave me, and hit the record button. I have it, I whispered into the phone, my voice shaking with rage. And Arthur? He's trying to steal my grandmother's inheritance with a fake document. And he's planning to have me committed. Get out of there, Meredith, Arthur's voice came through, tight with anger. Get back to the safe house. We have enough to bury him. I looked around the office one last time. I looked at the photo of Russell with his trophy. You want a war, Russell? I said to the empty room. You just got one. I ran down the stairs, out the front door, and back into the snow. But this time, the cold didn't bother me. I was burning with the fire of retribution. If you are listening to this, and you have ever felt the sting of betrayal, please pause for a moment. Like this video and comment the number 1 below. Let me know you're with me. Let me know I'm not alone in this darkness. Your support is the only thing keeping me warm right now. Comment 1 so I can see you. And now, listen to what happened next. I burst back into Mrs. Higgins' house, shivering not from the cold, but from the radioactive toxicity of what I had just heard in that closet. I slammed the door and leaned against it, sliding down until I hit the floor, clutching the USB drive to my chest like it was a grenade. Meredith? Mrs. Higgins was there instantly, her face pale. Did he see you? No, I gasped, trying to catch my breath. But I heard them. I heard everything. Arthur stepped out of the kitchen, his phone in hand. What did you hear? I looked up at him, my eyes burning. He's not just stealing from the company, Arthur. He's planning to have me committed. He wants to declare me mentally unstable so he can use a power of attorney to drain my grandmother's inheritance. He called it a rest period for me. Arthur's face went from concern to thunderous in a split second. He said that? He has a doctor friend who is going to sign off on it, I said, my voice shaking with rage. And he has a power of attorney document. He said he slipped it into my tax papers. He just needs to get it notarized illegally. Let me see the papers you took, Arthur demanded gently, helping me up. We moved to the dining room table. I pulled the crumbled receipts and the USB drive from my pocket. Arthur plugged the drive into his secure laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. Here it is, Arthur muttered after a few tense minutes. He kept digital copies of everything. The arrogance of this man, he actually has a folder labeled Exit Strategy. He opened a PDF. It was the power of attorney document. Look at this, Arthur pointed to the screen. That's your signature, Meredith. But look at the date. I squinted. October 15th. The same day as his golf tournament. And look at the witness line, Arthur said, his voice dropping to a whisper. It's blank. And the notary seal is missing. He said he has a guy who will backdate it, I explained. Arthur sat back, a shark-like grin spreading across his face. That is his fatal mistake. See, in the state of Illinois, a power of attorney for property is useless without a notary present at the time of signing. If he gets someone to stamp this now, with a past date, that's fraud. That's a felony. And since he scanned this blank version onto his work laptop, we have proof that as of today, it wasn't notarized. So if a notarized version shows up tomorrow dated last month. I started to piece it together. Exactly, Mrs. Higgins said, pouring me a fresh cup of tea. It proves he forged the timeline. It proves intent to defraud. But there is more, Arthur said, clicking on another file. The bank transfers. Here. $12,000 to VL Management on the 3rd, $8,500 on the 10th. And look at the memo lines, consulting. Meredith, do you know what IP address approved these transfers? His laptop? No, Arthur shook his head. His approval code was used, but the IP address traces back to a cell phone. An iPhone 14. I have an iPhone 12, I said. Russell has the 14. And so does Valerie, Mrs. Higgins chimed in. I saw her taking selfies with it in the garden. If Valerie authorized these payments using Russell's credentials, Arthur said, leaning forward, then she isn't just a mistress. She's an accomplice to corporate embezzlement and wire fraud. She's looking at prison time, too. I felt a wave of relief so strong it made me dizzy. So we have them? We have them, Arthur said, closing the laptop. But we need to move fast. If he gets that document notarized today, he can start draining your accounts tomorrow morning. We need to cut off the head of the snake right now. How? I asked. Arthur picked up his phone. I'm calling the legal department. We are going to freeze everything. His salary account, the company expense cards, and because I'm a petty man when it comes to thieves. I'm going to flag the company leased car as stolen if it's not returned by 5 p.m. The Mercedes? I asked. Valerie is driving it right now. Exactly, Arthur smiled. Let's see how much fun their spa day is when the credit cards decline and the tow truck shows up. I looked at the clock. It was 1:30 p.m. They were at the spa. Can we watch? I asked. It was a dark impulse, I know. But after being left to freeze in the snow, I needed to see the first domino fall. Arthur tapped his tablet. I can't hack the spa's cameras. But Russell's company credit card has real-time transaction alerts. And the car has a GPS tracker. He turned the tablet toward me. A blinking red dot showed the car parked at L'Elegant Spa downtown. Watch the transaction log, Arthur said softly. We sat there, the three of us, glued to the screen. It was silent in the kitchen, save for the ticking clock. Ding. A notification popped up. Transaction attempt, L'Elegant Spa. Amount, $650. Status, declined reason, fraud alert / account frozen. I let out a breath. Ding. Transaction attempt, L'Elegant Spa. Amount, $650. Status, declined. He's trying it again, Mrs. Higgins cackled. He thinks it's a glitch. Ding. Transaction attempt, L'Elegant Spa. Amount, $20. Status, declined. He's trying a small amount to test the card, Arthur explained. Now he's panicking. I closed my eyes and imagined the scene. Valerie in her robe, waiting for her facial. Russell at the front desk, sweating, the receptionist looking at him with pity. His arrogance crumbling over a piece of plastic. It's starting, I whispered. The ice is melting. I didn't have to just imagine it. As it turned out, the universe has a sense of humor. Or rather, a sense of justice. Arthur's phone buzzed. It was a text from his head of security, Mike, who had followed them to the spa to keep an eye on the car. Boss, you're not going to believe this. I'm in the lobby. Sending video. Arthur propped the phone up against the sugar bowl so we could all see. The video feed was shaky at first, filmed discreetly from a phone held at waist height, but the audio was crystal clear. There was Russell, standing at the high-gloss marble reception desk of the spa. He was wearing his gym clothes, looking red-faced and sweaty, but not from exertion. From panic. I'm telling you, run it again. Russell was yelling at the young receptionist. It's a platinum corporate card. It has a $50,000 limit. Sir, I've run it 3 times, the receptionist said, her voice icy polite. It says pickup card fraud. I can't give it back to you. Company policy. You give me back my card right now. Russell slammed his hand on the counter. Do you know who I am? I'm the regional director of Higgins Logistics. Valerie appeared in the frame. She was wearing a fluffy white spa robe, looking confused and annoyed. Russ? What's taking so long? My masseuse is waiting. Their machine is broken, Russell lied, his voice cracking. Do you have your card, Val? I left my wallet in the other bag. Ugh, seriously? Valerie rolled her eyes. She reached into the pocket of her robe. Wait, she had brought her purse into the robe? No, she went back to her locker. The camera cut for a second and came back. She handed over a sleek black card. Just put it on mine. You can Venmo me later. The receptionist swiped Valerie's card. A long pause. I'm sorry, ma'am, the receptionist said, louder this time. This card is also declined. Excuse me? Valerie screeched. That's impossible. That's my settlement money account. Declined, the receptionist repeated. And, oh. Sir? Ma'am? I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave. The system just flagged you both as security risks due to multiple payment failures. Security risks? Russell roared. People in the lobby were turning to stare. Ladies with cucumber water were whispering. I am a VIP. Sir, please leave before we call the police. A large security guard stepped into the frame. The walk of shame was excruciatingly beautiful. Russell, usually so composed, looked like a cornered rat. Valerie looked like her world was ending. They stormed out of the spa doors. The video ended. Why was her card declined? I asked Arthur. I thought we only froze Russell's. Arthur took a sip of his coffee, looking incredibly satisfied. When we flagged the suspicious transfers from the company to VL management, the bank automatically put a temporary hold on the receiving account pending an investigation. It's standard anti-money laundering protocol. Her account is frozen because it's filled with stolen money. So they have no cash. Mrs. Higgins clapped her hands together. And they're hungry. And wait, Arthur checked his watch. The repo order for the car just went through. Mike is coordinating with the tow truck driver. They should be walking out to the parking lot right about now. We didn't get a video of this part, but Mike texted a play-by-play. 1:45 p.m., targets approaching vehicle. 1:46 p.m., tow truck blocking exit. 1:47 p.m., male target screaming at driver. Driver showing repossession order from Higgins Corp. 1:50 p.m., police called by tow driver due to male target kicking the truck. 1:55 p.m., target surrendering keys. Walking away on foot. Male target blaming female target. They're walking? I asked. In this slush? Valerie is wearing heels, Mrs. Higgins noted, remembering the outfit. That's a 3-mile walk back to your house. I sat back in the chair. A strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't just happiness. It was the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted off my chest. For years, Russell had made me feel small. He had made me feel like I couldn't survive without him. Like I was a child who needed an allowance. But look at him now. Without his stolen money, without his company card, without his fake status, he was nothing. He was a man screaming at a tow truck driver. He's going to come back to the house, I said, the reality setting in. He's going to be furious. Let him go to the house, Arthur said grimly. We changed the locks, remember? He can't get in. And tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning he has to come to the office to try and fix this. He thinks it's a bank error. He thinks he can talk his way out of it. And that, Arthur stood up, buttoning his jacket, is when we drop the hammer. I want to be there, I said suddenly. Arthur looked at me. Meredith, it will be ugly. I know, I stood up to meet his gaze. But I need to see it. I need him to see me. I need him to know that it wasn't a bank error. It was me. Arthur held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Be at the office at 9 a.m. sharp. Wear something that says CEO, not victim. Mrs. Higgins smiled. Come upstairs, dear. Let's look at my vintage Chanel collection. We're going to dress you for war. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, but because I was rehearsing. I was rehearsing the look on his face. The next morning, Mrs. Higgins dressed me in a charcoal gray power suit from the 1990s, sharp shoulders, tailored waist, and a pair of killer heels. I pulled my hair back into a severe, sleek bun. I applied red lipstick. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the woman who cried over burnt roast beef. I saw the auditor who used to make grown men sweat over tax discrepancies. Arthur drove me to the Higgins Logistics headquarters downtown. We entered through the private executive elevator. "He's in the conference room," Arthur said as the elevator hummed upward. "He called an emergency meeting with HR and the finance team. He's planning to scream at them for the clerical error with his cards." "He has no idea you're in town?" I asked. "None. He thinks I'm on a yacht in the Mediterranean." We walked down the long glass hallway. I could hear Russell's voice booming before we even reached the doors. "Incompetence. Absolute incompetence." Russell was yelling. My ex-wife, must have tampered with the accounts. I want her investigated. I want my cards reinstated immediately." Arthur pushed the double doors open. The room went silent. Russell was standing at the head of the table, his face purple with rage. 10 terrified employees sat around him. When he saw Arthur, the color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse. "Mr. Higgins?" Russell stammered. "Sir? I didn't know you were." Then he saw me. He blinked. He looked from Arthur to me, and back to Arthur. He couldn't process it. Meredith, his doormat wife, standing next to the billionaire owner of the company, wearing a suit that cost more than his car. "Meredith," he whispered. "What are you doing here?" "Security. Get her out." "Sit down, Russell," Arthur said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of an anvil. "Sir, she's crazy." Russell tried to recover his charm, smoothing his tie. "We're going through a messy divorce. She's stalking me." I said, "Sit down." Russell sat. Arthur walked to the head of the table. He didn't look at Russell. He plugged his laptop into the projector system. "Russell here claims there has been a banking error," Arthur addressed the room. "He claims he is a victim of fraud. Let's look at the evidence." The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was the video from the spa. The audio filled the room. "Do you know who I am?" "I'm the regional director." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the staff. Russell gripped the edge of the table. This is private. You have no right." "And this," Arthur clicked the next slide. It was a breakdown of the VL management payments. "Russell, can you explain to the board who VL management is? And why their consulting services coincide perfectly with the dates of your client dinners?" Russell was sweating profusely now. "It's a boutique consultancy. Very exclusive." "Exclusive indeed," I spoke up. My voice was steady, clear, and projected to the back of the room. "Since the registered agent for the LLC is Valerie Lane. Your mistress." Russell's head snapped toward me. "Shut up, Meredith. You don't know what you're talking about." "And here," Arthur continued, ignoring him, "is the footage from your home security camera, which you so kindly linked to the company cloud for backup purposes." The screen showed the driveway. It showed Russell throwing me into the snow. It showed Valerie walking in. It showed the kiss. The room gasped. The HR director covered her mouth. "You threw your wife out in a blizzard," Arthur said, his voice cold with disgust. "And then you used company funds to buy champagne to celebrate. That's personal." Russell screamed, standing up. "That has nothing to do with this company. I am the best earner you have." "You were an employee," Arthur corrected. "As of this morning, you are terminated for cause embezzlement, fraud, misconduct, and gross negligence. You can't fire me." Russell lunged forward. "I built this branch." 2 large security guards stepped out from the shadows. And I stepped forward, placing a manila folder on the table. This is the copy of the power of attorney you forged. The one you planned to use to steal my grandmother's money. The police are waiting in the lobby, Russell. They're very interested in the forgery charges. Russell looked at the folder. He looked at me. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Meredith, he pleaded, his voice changing instantly to that soft, manipulative tone. Baby, wait. Let's talk. This is all a misunderstanding. I was stressed. Valerie, she tricked me. You know I love you. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had wasted 10 years on. The man I had cooked for, cleaned for, shrunk for. Russell, I said, smiling. My mother says hello. What? You told me to go to my mother, I said. You forgot she's dead. But don't worry. Where you're going, you'll have plenty of time to pray to her. Get him out of here, Arthur commanded. The security guards grabbed Russell by the arms. He started kicking and screaming as they dragged him toward the door. You'll pay for this, Meredith. You're nothing without me. Nothing. His voice faded down the hallway. The room was silent. Arthur turned to me. Are you okay? I took a deep breath. I felt light. I felt clean. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. While Russell was being handcuffed in the lobby of the Higgins building, a scene that apparently made the local news within the hour, Valerie was having a very different kind of morning. We knew this because the neighbors were texting Mrs. Higgins play-by-play updates. Valerie had woken up in my house alone. Russell had taken an Uber to work, since his car was repossessed, leaving her stranded. When she saw the news alert on her phone, local finance director arrested for embezzlement, she didn't call a lawyer for him. She didn't rush to the police station. She grabbed a suitcase. According to Mrs. Hoffman across the street, Valerie spent an hour running frantically around my house. She was looting it. She wasn't just packing her own things. She was taking my jewelry box. She was taking the silverware. She was even trying to stuff Russell's expensive gaming console into a duffel bag. She was a rat fleeing a sinking ship, trying to carry as much cheese as possible. But then, she hit a snag. At 11 a.m., Valerie tried to leave. She dragged 2 heavy suitcases to the front door. She turned the knob. It wouldn't open. She tried the deadbolt. It spun uselessly. See, when Arthur sent the locksmith over yesterday while they were at the spa, he didn't just change the keys. He installed a smart lock system. A system that could be controlled remotely. And Arthur had set the house to lockdown mode. Valerie ran to the back door. Locked. She ran to the windows. They were the old-fashioned storm windows, heavy and painted shut. Russell had been meaning to fix them for years but never got around to it. The only way out was breaking glass, but that would trigger the alarm system instantly. She was trapped. I sat in Arthur's office, watching the feed from the living room security camera on his tablet. It was pathetic. Valerie was pacing the living room, screaming into her phone. He's arrested. I don't care about him, I need a ride. Come get me. She was yelling at someone. I can't get out. The doors won't open. Then, she saw it. The smart TV in the living room flickered on. Arthur had remote access to that, too. A message appeared on the screen in big, bold letters, "Hello, Valerie. The police are on their way. Please wait." She screamed. She actually threw a vase at the TV, shattering the screen. Then she collapsed on the sofa, my sofa, and started sobbing. Not tears of remorse. Tears of a spoiled child who had finally been told no. It's almost sad, Arthur said, standing beside me. No, I said, hardening my heart. She laughed while he threw me in the snow. She helped him spend the money he stole. She deserves every second of this fear. 20 minutes later, the police arrived at the house. Since Valerie couldn't open the door, they had to break it down. We watched as they handcuffed her. They found my jewelry in her purse. They found the stolen silverware in her suitcase. She was charged with trespassing, theft, and accessory to embezzlement. By noon, both my husband and my best friend were behind bars. Arthur took me to lunch at a quiet cafe near the office. I stared at the menu, but my hands were shaking again. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now comes the hard part," Arthur said gently. "The legal battle. Russell will make bail. Guys like him always have a stash of cash hidden somewhere that we didn't find. And he will be angry." "He threatened to kill me," I whispered. "In the closet," he said, "if I fought him." "We have the restraining order," Arthur said. "And you are staying with my mother. My security team is watching the house 24/7. "He's going to come for me," I said, a cold certainty settling in my gut. "He's a narcissist. Losing his job, his reputation, his money, that's a narcissistic injury. He won't stop until he punishes the person he blames." "And who does he blame?" "Me," I said. "He blames me for not disappearing. He blames me for surviving." As if on cue, my burner phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "You think you're smart? You think you won? I'm out. And I'm coming to finish what the cold didn't. Watch your back, Meredith." I showed the phone to Arthur. His jaw tightened. "He made bail fast," Arthur said. "Okay. We need to be ready." "I'm done running," I said, putting the phone down. "Let him come. I have nothing left to hide." But I was wrong. I wasn't just done running. I was ready to fight. The Meredith who shivered on the porch was gone. The woman sitting in the cafe was forged in ice and fire. And she was dangerous. Russell didn't just get a lawyer, he got a shark. A man named Silas Thorne, known in Chicago for defending the indefensible. Thorne was cheap, dirty, and effective. 2 days after the arrest, the counterattack began. It started with a legal filing. Russell was suing me. He claimed that I was the one who embezzled the money using his passwords while he was working hard to support our family. He claimed Valerie was a business consultant he had hired to help with the workload, and that I had framed them both out of jealous rage. It was absurd. It was a lie. But it muddied the waters. Then came the gaslighting campaign. Russell posted a long, tearful video on Facebook. He looked disheveled, sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room. "My friends," he said to the camera, wiping away fake tears. "I am a victim of domestic abuse. My wife, Meredith, she has been mentally unstable for years. I tried to help her. I tried to get her treatment. But she snapped. She hacked my work computer. She planted evidence. She turned my boss against me. I have lost everything because I tried to love a broken woman." The comment section was horrifying. People, some of them our mutual friends, were siding with him. "Stay strong, Russ. I always knew she was weird. Women can be so vindictive." I sat in Mrs. Higgins' living room, reading the comments, feeling like I was going to throw up. "Don't read that trash," Mrs. Higgins snapped, snatching the tablet away. "It's smoke and mirrors. He's trying to discredit you before the trial." "It's working," I said, my voice trembling. "People believe him. He's so charming. He's so convincing." "He's a cornered animal," Mrs. Higgins said. "And animals bite." That night, the physical threats escalated. A brick smashed through the front window of my house, which was empty, thank God. Tied to it was a note, liar. Then, my phone started blowing up with texts from spoof numbers. Photos of me walking into Mrs. Higgins' house. Photos of me at the grocery store. He was watching me. He wants me to be scared, I realized. He wants me to drop the charges. He thinks if he terrorizes me enough, I'll fold like I always did. Arthur increased security. 2 guards were now parked outside Mrs. Higgins' house around the clock. But I felt like a prisoner again. I can't live like this, I told Arthur on the 4th day. I'm hiding in your mother's house while he controls the narrative. He's winning. He's not winning, Arthur said. He's flailing. But we need to end this. We need to draw him out. How? He wants a confrontation, I said, realizing the truth. He can't stand that I haven't spoken to him. He can't stand that I'm ignoring him. Narcissists need supply. Negative supply is better than no supply. What are you suggesting? Arthur asked cautiously. I'm going to go to the house, I said. My house. I need to pack the rest of my things anyway. I'm going to go there, in broad daylight, and I'm going to let him know I'm there. That's bait, Arthur said. You're using yourself as bait. With your security team there, I added. And the police on speed dial. If he shows up and violates the restraining order, he goes back to jail. No bail this time. It was a risky plan. Mrs. Higgins hated it. But I insisted. I needed to look him in the eye one last time. I needed to show him I wasn't afraid. The next morning, I drove to my house. The yellow police tape had been removed. The broken door was boarded up. It looked like a scar on the street. I walked inside. It was cold and smelled of stale air. I started packing boxes in the living room, leaving the front door wide open. I wanted him to see. An hour later, a beat-up sedan pulled up to the curb. It wasn't Valerie's Mercedes. It was a rental. The door opened. Russell stepped out. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, eyes wild and bloodshot. He didn't look like the successful director anymore. He looked like a madman. He walked up the driveway. He was holding something in his hand. A baseball bat. Meredith, he screamed. Get out here. I stepped onto the porch. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But my feet were planted firmly on the ground. You're not supposed to be here, Russell, I called out calmly. You ruined my life, he swung the bat at the mailbox, smashing it. You took everything. My job. My girl. My money. I took back what was mine, I said. And Valerie? She didn't leave because of me. She left because you're broke. Shut up. He took a step closer to the porch. I should have let you freeze that night. I should have finished the job. But you didn't, I said. And now, you're done. He raised the bat and charged up the stairs. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the madness in his eyes. I saw the wood grain on the bat. I saw the spittle flying from his mouth as he screamed my name. In the past, the old Meredith would have cowered. She would have apologized. She would have begged. But I wasn't her anymore. As Russell reached the top step, I didn't flinch. I stood my ground, staring him dead in the eye. Do it, I said, my voice cold as steel. Swing that bat, Russell. Add assault with a deadly weapon to your list of charges. Spend the next 20 years in a cage. Is it worth it? He hesitated. The bat hovered in mid-air. For a split second, the bully faltered because his victim didn't flinch. This is it. This is the moment I take my life back. The moment I stop being a victim and start being the hero of my own story. If you are listening to this, and you have ever stood up to a bully, ever found the courage to say a no when your voice was shaking, please, pause this video right now. Hit that like button and comment the number 1 below. Do it for the old Meredith who was too scared to speak. Do it for yourself. Let me know you're standing on this porch with me. Comment 1 and let's finish this together. You bitch. Russell lowered the bat slightly, breathing hard. You think you're safe? I know I am, I said. From the bushes on either side of the porch, Arthur's security team emerged. Mike and another guard, weapons drawn, tasers, but Russell didn't know that. Drop the bat! Mike shouted. On the ground! Now! Russell spun around, realizing it was a trap. Panic replaced the rage. I just wanted to talk, Russell stammered, the bat clattering to the concrete. She invited me. She left the door open. Then, the sirens wailed. Arthur had called the police the second Russell's car appeared. 3 squad cars screeched to a halt in front of the house. Officers swarmed the lawn. Hands behind your head. Get down. I watched as my husband, the man who used to care so much about appearances, about what the neighbors thought, was forced face down into the slushy grass. He was crying now. Ugly, snotty tears. Meredith! Tell them, he screamed as they cuffed him. Tell them we were just talking. Don't let them take me. I walked down the steps. I stood over him. You violated the restraining order, Russell, I said calmly. And you threatened me with a weapon. There is no talking your way out of this. They dragged him to the police car. He looked back at me one last time, and I saw the light go out in his eyes. He knew. He finally knew that he had lost. As the police car drove away, a taxi pulled up. Valerie stepped out. She looked rough. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared. She wasn't in custody anymore, she had made bail on the theft charges faster than Russell. She saw the police cars leaving. She saw me standing on the lawn. She walked over, not with her usual swagger, but with a hesitant, desperate shuffle. Meredith, she said, her voice cracking. Thank God. Is he gone? I looked at her. What do you want, Valerie? He's crazy, Mare, she sniffled, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. He forced me to do those things. The credit cards, the embezzlement. I didn't want to. He threatened me. You have to believe me. We're best friends, remember? I stared at her. The audacity was breathtaking. He threatened you? I asked. Yes. He said he'd hurt me if I didn't help him spend the money. I was a victim too. She tried to squeeze out a tear. Can I stay with you tonight? Just until I get on my feet? My landlord locked me out because of the arrest news. I laughed. A loud, genuine laugh that startled the birds in the trees. You want to stay with me? I asked. In the house you tried to steal? I didn't want to steal it, she lied. I wanted to be close to you. Valerie, I said, stepping closer to her. You are not a victim. You are a predator who got caught. And you are trespassing. But I have nowhere to go, she wailed. Go to the shelter, I said, pointing down the street. Or go to hell. I don't care. Just get off my property. You can't do this, she screamed, her face twisting into ugly rage. You owe me. I was your friend for 15 years. And that, I said, turning my back on her, is why I'm not pressing charges for the silverware you stole. That's my final gift to you. Goodbye, Valerie. I walked back into my house and slammed the door. I locked it. I watched through the peephole as she stood there for a minute, screaming at the wood. Then, defeated, she picked up her bag and started walking down the street in the cold. I slid down the door, sitting on the floor of my empty hallway. It was over. The monsters were gone. But the silence they left behind was loud. I sat there and cried, not for them, but for the time I had lost loving them. I cried for the Meredith who had been so blind. But as the tears dried, I felt a warmth spreading through me. It was the warmth of total, absolute freedom. The wheels of justice grind slow, but in Russell and Valerie's case, they were grinding exceedingly fine. With Russell back in jail without bail, thanks to the baseball bat incident, the dynamic shifted. The Bonnie and Clyde of the suburbs turned on each other with vicious speed. It started with Valerie. Realizing she was facing serious jail time for the wire fraud and embezzlement accessory charges, Valerie did what she always did, she looked out for number one. Arthur's lawyer called us a week later with the news. Valerie has cut a deal, he told us. She's turning state's witness against Russell. I sat in Arthur's office, sipping tea. What does that mean? It means she's handing over everything. Texts, emails, voice notes. She has proof that Russell orchestrated the entire embezzlement scheme. She claims she was just a passive beneficiary who didn't know the money was stolen until it was too late. That's a lie, I said. She knew. Of course it's a lie, Arthur agreed. But the prosecutor doesn't care about Valerie. She's a small fish. They want Russell. He's the director who breached fiduciary duty. So, in exchange for a reduced sentence, probation and community service, Valerie is handing Russell on a silver platter. The betrayal was poetic. The woman Russell destroyed his marriage for was now the nail in his coffin. But Russell wasn't going down quietly. When he heard about Valerie's deal, he went nuclear. From his jail cell, he instructed his lawyer to release his own stash of evidence. It turned out, Russell had been recording Valerie too. He released audio files where Valerie was explicitly planning how to spend the stolen money. Make sure you transfer the 10 grand to my LLC before the audit, her voice said clearly on the tape. And babe, can we use the company card for the Botox? Just put it under vehicle maintenance. The prosecutor revoked Valerie's deal immediately. They're destroying each other, Mrs. Higgins said with satisfaction over dinner that night. It's like watching scorpions in a bottle. It makes the trial easier for us, I said. I don't even have to prove they're guilty. They're doing it for me. But there was one final twist. Valerie, desperate and broke, gave an interview to a trashy tabloid website. She sold her story for $500. In the interview, she tried to paint herself as the tragic heroine and me as the cold, calculating wife who drove her husband into her arms. Meredith was frigid, Valerie claimed in the article. She never supported his dreams. I was his muse. It stung. But then, the internet did its thing. Someone found the video of the tow truck incident. Someone else found the mugshots. The comment section on the article turned against her. So the muse helped him steal $2 million? Sounds like she was his accomplice, not his muse. Team Meredith all the way. I stopped reading. I realized that their noise didn't matter anymore. They were screaming into a void. I was building a new life, and they were just footnotes in a chapter one was closing. The trial took place 6 months later. Chicago was thawing, spring flowers pushing through the earth, mirroring my own life. I walked into the courtroom with Arthur by my side. I wore a white suit this time. A symbol of rebirth. Russell sat at the defense table. He had lost weight. His hair was thinning. He looked 10 years older. When he saw me, he didn't glare. He looked hollow. Valerie was there too, sitting separately with her public defender. She refused to make eye contact with anyone. I took the stand. Mrs. Higgins, excuse me, Ms. Gray, the prosecutor corrected himself, using my maiden name which I had legally reclaimed. Can you tell us about the night of January 12th? I took a breath. I looked at the jury, 6 men, 6 women. Normal people. It was the coldest night of the year, I began. My husband told me he had a client coming. He pushed me out the door. He locked it. I told the story. I didn't embellish. I didn't cry. I just spoke the truth. I told them about the cold. About the fear. About seeing my best friend walk into my home while I froze. Then, the prosecutor brought out the power of attorney document. Ms. Gray, did you sign this? I signed a document that I was told was for tax purposes, I said. I did not know it was a power of attorney giving him control over my grandmother's inheritance. And I certainly did not sign it in the presence of a notary. The forensic expert took the stand next. He confirmed that the notary stamp on the document was physically stamped months after the digital scan was created on Russell's computer. Fraud. Forgery. Attempted grand larceny. Russell's lawyer tried to cross-examine me. He tried to paint me as a bitter ex-wife. Isn't it true, Ms. Gray, that you were jealous of the defendant's success? I was proud of his success, I said clearly. Until I found out his success was stolen money and lies. I wasn't jealous. I was deceived. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Forgery. Assault for the lockout incident. The judge was a stern woman who had clearly heard enough of Russell's excuses during the proceedings. Mr. Higgins, she said, referring to Russell, who still used his married name. You betrayed your employer. You betrayed your wife. You betrayed the public trust. You are a predator in a suit. She sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. Valerie, for her part in the scheme and the wire fraud, got 3 years. As the bailiffs led Russell away, he stopped near where I was sitting. Meredith, he whispered. I looked at him. I'm sorry, he said. It sounded almost sincere. Almost. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't pay back $2 million. And sorry doesn't unlock the door when it's 5 degrees outside. He hung his head and was led away. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright spring sunshine. Arthur was waiting with the car. It's done? He asked. It's done, I said. Hungry? Starving, I smiled. Let's get lunch. And Arthur? I'm paying. While Russell went to a medium-security federal prison, Valerie's fate was, in some ways, more humiliating. She served 18 months, released early for overcrowding. But her life as she knew it was over. The socialite of the suburbs was gone. Her reputation was incinerated. I heard about her through the grapevine. She couldn't get a job in finance or sales, her background check was flagged with fraud. She couldn't find a rich husband, her name was a warning flare on every dating app in the state. A year after the trial, I was stopping for gas in a town 3 hours south of Chicago. I went inside to pay. There was a woman mopping the floor. She wore a stained blue uniform, her hair gray and pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked tired. Broken. She turned around. It was Valerie. Our eyes met. She froze. The mop dripped dirty water onto her shoes. She looked at my tailored suit. She looked at the new car parked outside. Then she looked down at her name tag, trainee. Meredith, she breathed. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the urge to scream or gloat. I just felt pity. Hello, Valerie, I said. She started, her eyes darting around nervously. I'm just doing this until my consulting business takes off again. We both knew that was a lie. Good luck with that, I said. Meredith, wait, she took a step forward. I really am sorry. About everything. I miss our coffee dates. She missed the coffee dates where she undermined me. She missed the friend she could use. Those dates were a long time ago, I said gently. The Meredith you knew doesn't exist anymore. I paid for my gas. I bought a bottle of water. I walked out the door. I saw her through the glass, standing there with her mop, watching me drive away. She was stuck in the puddle of her own choices. I was moving forward. With the settlement from the divorce, yes, I got the remaining assets after the company was repaid, and my grandmother's protected inheritance. I had a fresh start. I didn't move to New York. I realized I loved Chicago, I just hated the life I had lived in it. I opened my own firm, Gray Financial Forensics. My specialty? Helping women going through high-conflict divorces find the money their husbands were hiding. It was satisfying work. Every time I found a hidden offshore account or a fake LLC, I felt like I was striking a blow for the old Meredith. I became the woman I needed 10 years ago. And Arthur? We remained friends. Good friends. He respected my need for independence. He didn't try to save me again. He hired my firm as external auditors for Higgins Logistics. Ironic, isn't it? One evening, we were having dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. You look happy, Arthur said, swirling his wine. I am, I said. I own my house. I own my business. I own my life. You know, Arthur said, a shy smile appearing. My mother keeps asking when you're coming over for tea again. She says the garden is blooming. I'll come Sunday, I smiled. And Arthur? Yes. Thank you. For opening the door that night. And for helping me open all the doors after that. He reached across the table and took my hand. It wasn't a grand romantic gesture. It was steady. Warm. Safe. Anytime, Meredith. Anytime. We didn't rush. I wasn't ready to be a wife again. But I was ready to be loved. Properly. Respectfully. And that was enough. 2 years after the blizzard, I received a letter from prison. Meredith. I'm signing the final papers for the sale of the lake house. I just wanted to say. I think about that night a lot. I think about how cold it must have been. It's cold in here, too. I guess that's karma. Russell. I held the letter. I looked at his handwriting. It used to make my heart flutter. Now, it looked jagged and small. I decided to go. Not for him. For me. I sat in the visitation room behind the glass. Russell walked in. He looked like an old man. The arrogance was scrubbed away by prison routine. You came, he said, sounding surprised. I needed to bring the papers, I said, sliding the envelope through the slot. He signed them without reading. The man who used to obsess over every detail didn't care anymore. How is everything? He asked. Good, I said. Business is good. I'm happy. He nodded, looking down at his hands. I messed up, Mayor. I had it all. A wife who loved me. A great job. I threw it away for nothing. Yes, you did, I agreed. Do you hate me? He asked, looking up with wet eyes. I thought about it. I searched my heart for the rage that had fueled me through the closet incident, the trial, the divorce. It was gone. No, Russell, I said. I don't hate you. Hate takes energy. I just don't think about you. He flinched. That hurt him more than screaming would have. Indifference is the ultimate revenge against a narcissist. Goodbye, Russell, I said, standing up. Will you come back? He asked desperately. No, I said. I won't. I walked out of the prison. The heavy steel doors slammed shut behind me. Clang. It was the same sound as my front door slamming on that snowy night. But this time, I was on the right side of the door. I was on the side of freedom. I'm sitting in Mrs. Higgins' garden now. The roses are in full bloom. The sun is warm on my face. It's hard to believe that just a few years ago, I was freezing to death on a porch, believing my life was over. I wanted to tell you this story not to scare you, but to remind you of something important. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing. If Russell hadn't locked me out, I would have stayed. I would have stayed in that loveless marriage, shrinking every day, letting him steal my soul and my money. I would have withered away. That blizzard saved me. That cruelty woke me up. To any woman listening to this who feels trapped, who feels like she's walking on eggshells, who feels like she's invisible in her own home, you are stronger than you think. You are worth more than they tell you. Don't wait for them to lock you out in the snow. Open the door yourself. Walk out. It might be cold at first. It might be scary. But I promise you, there is a warm house waiting next door. There is a Mrs. Higgins waiting to help. There is an Arthur waiting to respect you. And most importantly, there is a version of you waiting to be met. I'm Meredith Grey. I was a victim. Now, I'm a victor. Thank you for listening to my story. And so, as Meredith reclaimed her life, her story leaves us with a profound reminder: resilience is born in the darkest moments, and strength is often hidden beneath layers of pain. This is not just a tale of betrayal or revenge, it is a testament to the power of self-worth, the courage to walk away from what no longer serves us, and the ability to rebuild even when the odds seem insurmountable. Meredith's journey teaches us that sometimes, losing everything is the first step to finding ourselves. Life will inevitably present storms, and there will be those who try to diminish our light. But like Meredith, we must remember that we hold the power to rise, to reclaim our dignity, and to rewrite our story. The most important relationship we will ever have is the one with ourselves. When we choose to honor and value that, we unlock a strength that no betrayal can destroy. What about you? What lesson from Meredith's journey speaks to your heart? Share your thoughts below, or simply comment good if this story inspired you to see your own strength more clearly. Let's keep the conversation alive.